We had another question from Billy Brittingham.
Jimmy, I was wondering how the talks started for you to fill in for Tim Richmond and Hendrick at Charlotte 1987, and were there any talks about you running further races in that car that year?
Well, I think, what was it, 87 it was? It was 87. We had some good runs. We led some laps at Richmond. Ended up ninth, I think, but we led some laps. I think we led 3 different times. The leaders would pit for tires, and we'd stay out on our old tires, and it took them a while to get to us and pass us. So we had a good run there, and then we went to Dover and had a really good run. I think we qualified the first round, knocked Earnhardt out of the top 20, which when I came in the pits, he gave me the high sign. And so from there, I guess, got a little bit, some people showed some attention. And Jimmy Johnson was the team manager. I think he's passed now, of Hendrick Motorsports at the time. And he called me and said, we want to talk to you about driving the 25 car at Charlotte. I said, who is this? Jimmy Johnson? So I hung the phone up. And then he called back again. He said, I hung the phone up again.
So you hung up on Hendrick Motorsports twice?
Yeah, I thought they were playing a trick on me. So and finally called back and said, don't hang up. It really is Jimmy Johnson from Hendrick Motorsports. And I said, okay. Then when we went from there, so I listened then.
Was running more races for that team ever discussed, or did you know that it was going to be a one-race deal?
No, it was just a one-shot deal.
Okay.
If things could have worked out different, we hadn't gotten that wreck and we had a really good finish, who knows? But there was a lot of positive things that came out of that. I got some more recognition that I wouldn't have got if I hadn't drove that car, and I think I was probably the Cinderella type deal of that race. So everybody was pulling for me. And after that, we were fortunate enough to get Alka-Seltzer for 3 years. So, a little limelight, no matter positive or negative, it has an impact. So,
what was it like for you to go to the racetrack that weekend and not have to worry about buying tires, not have to worry about paying for the crew rooms, not having to worry about paying for their food? What was it like for you to go and just focus on sitting in the race car and driving around the racetrack?
Well, going back to Jimmy Johnson, let me say this, said the only way I'll drive that car if you let me put 52 on it so I can keep my owner points up. And at the time, the 25 wasn't running all the races, so they didn't have a problem with that. So that helped me twofold, with a chance to really get some points and with a good finish. But yeah, it was just, I could have got used to that. It was awesome. Now, it just, I couldn't believe every time we turned around, Harry High was putting a set of tires on this thing. And we scuffed all our tires before the race, and I hated it. We had probably 10 sets of tires there, and we couldn't run them because they crashed. But it was an awesome feeling, and it was a lot of pride for me to get to drive that car.
Well, after that wreck, you said pretty much you were devastated that it happened, and you still sound very, regretful today. But overall, how difficult was that for you?
Well, so many people were pulling for me, and for it to go down the tubes like that, they had a big party planned that night with T.G. Shepard was going to be there, and so the last thing I want to do is go to a party after that. So. Yeah. Yeah, it was. I was probably one of the lowest points in my career as a driver.
Well, I can tell you about, as an aside, and you don't have to run this, as an aside, talk about the fans pulling for you. Up there in the press box, we were all pulling for you. And when it happened, we were, give him another chance. Let him do it again.
Craig Dedman asked,
and I was just wondering, did you ever have any other opportunities through your career where you contacted about from other drivers or owners for an opportunity to drive their car?
If I don't work on it and I don't own it, I don't go race. So I'm not one of those that's going to sit on the couch that came looking for me. So I knew what I could do on my own, and and if I was going to continue to do that, and if something came along, then I wanted to be prepared for it. But if you're sitting at home on the couch, you get forgotten. Out of sight, out of mind.
Well, as time went on, what did a good season look like for Jimmy Means?
Finished in the top 20 in owner points, and we finished 11th one year, one spot to go into the big table in New York.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not going to go to the banquet until I can sit on the big table there. Never made it that close again, but the top 20 was important for us to plan money and the point money at the end of the year.
At some point, your son Brad starts hanging around at the racetrack with this Earnhardt kid. What's your best story about Brad and Dale Jr. running around the racetrack together?
Well, they were typical teenagers, or they were 12 and 13 at the time when they met. I believe they even had a little fight one time. My daddy's better than your daddy type deal, I think it was. But we're glad to have Junior around us, hanging around us, and then I think he was out of his daddy's hair and in ours, but at the same time I thought it was it was a privilege to have him hang around us and him and my son to be friends, and it was just good times. I think actually one of our scorers babysitted for Junior at Daytona one time for Big Dale. So.
Now, who broke up the fight? Did you get to break up?
No. This is one that my son told me they did.
Okay,
I don't think it was a big fight, but just a little skirmish.
Well, come on, man! It'd be a better story if there was bloodshed.
No, there wasn't no bloodshed, but I will say one time they got in a little bit of trouble. Somehow or another, we had a VCR. We had a VCR in our trailer, TV type deal thing. And I think somebody put something in there they shouldn't put in there.
Oh, there we go. Now we're on to something.
I knew it.
It was Dale's fault. No, it was Brad's fault.
Jimmy, my question for you is, who was your favorite competitor that you raced against during your driving days?
Probably has to be Red Farmer.
Okay.
He was kind of my hero back, because he was a pleasure to race against. Drove you clean. Never once crashed me. But I did crash him a couple of times. So, but he drove you clean and just a prince of a fella. And he called me Smutnik instead of Smut. Called me Smutnik. He told me first time I ever went to Daytona, he said, "Boy, don't ever go anywhere without your bathing suit and your overcoat." And he's pretty much right, because you don't ever know what the weather's going to be anywhere.
Jimmy, we lost Hippie a few years ago. Tell our listeners about Brian Hippie Dorsey.
Well, I mean, I really miss him. There's not a time he came through that door that he wasn't smiling. He told me one time everything he had was either bent, broke, burnt, or pregnant. But he was still upbeat and a working this guy. I mean, he did all the body work, put motors in, changed gears, drove the truck. And one time I asked him, I said, "Hippie, do you ever take anything, stay awake?" Because I used to ride with him all the time, and I would spell him when he really got tired. He said, "Heck yeah, how do you think I stay awake?" So, yeah, he took something. I got to tell you a quick little story, too. When I quit driving, I got on with Bud Moore, and I went to work for Bud Moore and never told Hippie. He come in to work on Monday morning, I wasn't here. So I think he heard about it on ESPN of the broadcast of the race at Wilkesboro when I quit. So my boss man's not here. What am I going to do? So I come in that evening from Bud's. I said, "I'm going to keep you on. I'm going to keep paying you. As soon as I can get you on at Bud's, I'm going to get you on." And so it wasn't too long. Took a couple of months. We got him on at Bud's driving the truck. Probably the best job I ever had, because Bud paid by the hour and paid overtime. So he had it really nice. But we were in Atlanta, and I was rooming with him. And I had a terrible headache, and I knew Hippie had goodie powders. So I go in there in the bathroom in his shaving kit, get a goodie powder. I take that goodie powder, I lay it down.
Oh, dear.
I know what's coming.
I lay down, I lay on my arm, and my ears are beating. It's like a drum beating. Across my ankles, my heart's beating so loud I can't go to sleep because of that. I never went to sleep that night. And we're standing, all the guys were standing behind the car at Bud's car at Atlanta. And Hippie had him an entourage, Benfield was there and all them guys, and they were just horse laughing. And I walked by and said, "What y'all laughing about?" He said, "Oh," Hippie said, "You won't laugh." I said, "Well, just tell me." "Yeah, I will, tell me." And what it was stay awake powder in that goody powder, so the DOT man wouldn't catch him. So I was on speed, didn't know it.
Okay, there we go. I don't know where to go from there, Steve.
Good thing they didn't drug test me that day.
Jimmy, I don't know how to ask this, but I'm just going to go ahead and ask it. You were involved in JD's accident at Watkins Glen, and I know that losing Neil at Daytona a couple of years after that, 2 or 3 years after that, had a huge impact on you as well. How much of a role did those 2 accidents play in your decision to step out of the car?
Well, JD's deal, that was a racing accident. He broke something, and I was ahead of him, and he got into me and turned me towards the fence like he did. But I was fortunate. I went head on through it, and he couldn't because his car was sideways.
Yeah.
And it broke his neck.
Yeah.
When I got to him, there was no blood, anything. He just broke his neck. His helmet was about right here on his ears because he just, slung his neck. So that was a racing deal, and I think Michigan was the next week. And, I was thinking about it. And, I just thinking about losing him. I wasn't thinking about really getting out of the car. But Steve Gray comes up to me and says, "We need you to qualify our ARCA car. So our driver's something wrong. Our driver didn't show up, blah, blah, blah." So I stepped, that was my first time back in a race car after JD was at a Michigan when I qualified that ARCA car. So, and we made the race. So I kind of got that out of the way when I got in, our Cup car. So, but yeah, now losing Neil, we ran, all the short tracks together back in the day. I finished second to him in points at Birmingham for 2 years in a row. And I actually had him in my stopwatch watching him when he blew that tire and crashed. So, that took a lot out of me. And then we lost Rodney Orr on Monday.
Right.
And I said, my heart's not in it anymore. And I said, I'm just not going to do it. So I quit.
Wow.
And there's people out there right now that's driving, their heart's not in it because the money's too big to quit. But, I was there with me and Marcus. There was only 2 guys that really didn't have much funding. And we were racing to outrun each other. And I said, I don't need this. So I decided to quit.
All right.
You served as a team manager for Dick Trickle at Bud Moore's in 1995, and then as Wallace crew chief the next year. How'd that all come about?
Donnie Wingo, I believe, told me to talk to Bud. Said they were thinking about doing something, and I talked to Bud, and basically signed on this, a team manager type of role. But basically, what the role was to be a mediator between Bud and Donnie Wingo because they couldn't talk without fighting. So that was a mediator. But then after that, Donnie got an opportunity to. I guess he saw the handwriting on the wall for us, Bud losing funding, and Donnie got an opportunity to go with Travis Carter, and then I stepped into the crew chief role at that point, and then until we lost all our sponsorship, then Bud went out of business.
Well, after being on your own boss for so long, for better or for worse, what was it like working for somebody else?
Well, I can tell you this: the clock never moved. I mean, when you work for yourself, it's like it's in warp speed. You don't have enough time to get everything done that you need to get done. But like I said, working for Bud, we worked from 8 to 5, not a moment past 5. If we didn't work on Saturdays, it was just different. But like I said, when it's your own stuff, you have a little more interest in it. Not that I didn't, do my best for Bud, but it's just different when you own your own operation.
Now, I understand that Bud had a very particular management style. It was basically his way or the highway. How did that work with you having been your own boss for so long?
Actually, it wasn't as what you think. Early on, for Bud, when he was basically the crew chief. Even though somebody else was in that position, he was still the crew chief. Right. But at this point, when I went to work for him, it was not that way. He pretty much give you a free hand. He basically his input was on the motors and whatever that was, but he didn't, pretty much let you do what you needed to do. He did say one time, Donnie would check the wedge with the jack and the socket to see how much wedge you had in the rear end. And Bud said, why is he, no, they got that story backwards. Donnie was setting the car up with scales, and then Bud didn't believe those scales, those numbers. He believed in putting a jack on the rear end to see how much wedge was in the car. Then he knew it was right, but not by the numbers and the pounds of the weight.
Jimmy, you made another move, and in 1998, you are Ed Berrier's crew chief in the Busch Series. And one of my all-time most favorite victories by anybody, anywhere, is when you guys won at Hickory that year. The thing about that victory, it wasn't the result of a big pileup. Ed won that race, and you guys were stout all day. It wasn't a gas mileage race. It didn't take a range shortened race with anybody where anybody stayed out on the racetrack at the right time. Ed won the race. He led twice for a total of 187 of the race's 300 laps. What did you guys have that day?
Well, we built that car brand new just because then it was only 30 cars that made the race. We built that car brand new. It was a Laughlin car from scratch. And when we did the Lear deal with the 77, we had a little bit of funding, so we could basically buy almost what we needed. So we decided to build a brand new car. We went to Greenville Pickens to test it. Then we took it to Hickory for the race. I think we made one change the whole time we were there. We sat outside pole. And if we hadn't been the first qualifier out on that dirty track, I believe it would have sat on the pole. But, yeah, we just had it right. And Ed was a phenomenal short track racer. So.
After more than 20 years in the sport at that time and everything that you had been through as a car owner and a driver, what did it mean to you personally to win the race that day?
One of the main Ford guys gave me a call and said, I want you to go talk to these people about taking this team over, being the general manager and the crew chief of this team. I think his name was, remember Preston?
Yes.
Yeah,
Preston
Miller.
Preston
Miller.
Yeah, he's the one that suggested to me to talk to these guys, and Preston had already talked to him. But we did that deal out of Mooresville, and when I took it over I think it was June or so when I took it over, and they already had existing personnel there, and I can remember, they resented me tremendously. I could feel the knives going in my back every time I walked in the door. So they just resented me because they kind of, they were basically it was that team was laughing stock, of the Busch Series. So I think we made some gains. We made a driver change, which that wasn't popular with some people, but I felt like we needed to do something with somebody with some experience to move the team forward. And at the end of the year, I told the owner, I said, if you want me to do this again, I want to move it to my shop in Forest City, because I'm not going to commute back to every day to do this. So that's what we did, and it was a good move. And what I felt about that win is we took something from the bottom and basically took it to the top. I was pretty proud of that, because that car was built right here in the shop, and we did all the body work and all that on it. So it was a pretty big deal.
Well, all these years later, what keeps you going?
I like to eat. So, if anybody puts any effort, as much effort in any other kind of occupation as they do for racing, they've been able to retire a long time ago. So I like it. I've heard too many stories that people retire at 62, then something happens, and 64 they're gone. So I just, my body's 70, but my mind's not. I still enjoy going. And we judge racetracks where we want to go to is by the food we like Talladega, top of the river, Dover, Sambo's. So, that's that's how we judge races and where we want to go.
Jimmy Means is my kind of guy.
I know both those places very well, and he is on the money.
Hey, Jimmy, this is Edwin Turner in Greensboro, North Carolina. But I'm a Rutherford County native and grew up just a few miles south of your shop. And over the past many years, I brought my dad by to visit with me too. So what I would like to know is, do you have a plan for how much longer you plan to be a car owner? Because I would like for you to be our Jeannie Donlevy and stay in us a long time, so I'll have a chance to come by and see you again whenever I visit my dad next time. And go 52.
Hey, Edwin, how about coming back to see us? Well, that's somebody that they'll ask. They said, how much longer are you going to do this? I'll say one race at a time. Mm-hmm. So you never know what's coming around the corner. So I'm going to, one race at a time.
Is that the system you're following during this reshuffling of NASCAR and the scheduling and everything? Like, you still pick one race at a time, or are you just sort of laying back?
Now we plan on running all of them, you know, but it's a deal where you never know what's going to happen. So I mean, it's we have a young driver, Cody Vanderwall from Colorado. It's kind of, with this pandemic deal going on, it's kind of been rough on him because we go into racetracks he's never even seen before, and they got to drop the green flag and go race. So it makes it tough. Makes it tough on him, but he's coming around.